Good morning, dear students. I'm Dr. Marwa Abbas, Professor of Clinical Toxicology. Our lecture today will be about environmental toxicology. In this lecture, we will give important definitions about environmental toxicology and what is the difference between ecotoxicology and environmental health toxicology, and what also the difference between environmental pollution and environmental contamination. We will also identify different types of environmental pollutants and what are expected routes of exposure to these pollutants and what are the general health effects on human being, giving important examples for them. First of all, environmental toxicology. Environmental toxicology is a scientific study of health effects associated with exposure to toxic chemicals. It's classified into ecotoxicology and environmental health toxicology. Simply, difference between ecotoxicology and environmental health toxicology. Ecotoxicology, the study of harmful effects of toxic chemicals on different biological organisms, either human beings, animals, plants, and so on. While environmental health toxicology, it mainly deals and concerned with the study of adverse and harmful effects of these chemicals on human being health. Then, we have to differentiate between environmental contamination and environmental pollution. When you can say it's contamination, on the other hand, this is pollution. What is the difference? Contamination is presence of elevated concentrations of substance in environment above the natural level, but without any harmful effect to any organism. So, contamination, there is no harmful effects. Presence of harmful effects, this is pollution. Occurrence of undesirable, unwanted changes in physical, chemical, biological characteristics of the environment, either water, air, soil, that cause harmful effects to the living organisms, this is pollution. Pollutants may be exogenous substances or naturally occurring substances. But whatever the source, pollutants cause detrimental effects on the environment. Pollutants are classified into quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative pollutants like CO2. CO2, as you know, is a nature occurring substance. It's already present in the environment from breathing of living organisms. So it's present in the environment, but to certain level. Increase in the quantity of CO2, like for example, forest fires, this is quantitative pollutants. CO2 here in forest fires will endanger health of different living organisms. On the other hand, presence of substance not naturally present in the environment, and this environment has harmful effects, like for example, pesticides. This is called qualitative pollutants. Pollutants may be organic, inorganic, or gaseous in nature, radioactive material, or biological pollutants. Inorganic pollutants like heavy metals, and we will discuss later different health effects of heavy metals. While organic pollutants like pesticides, a common example. We will discuss also health hazards of pesticides, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, phenols, dioxin, different examples. But organic pollutants is characterized by its high lipid solubility. So it bioaccumulates, meaning what? When ingested by small organisms, like for example, pollution of seawater by pesticides. Pesticides will enter small fish body. It have bio accumulation, meaning high lipid solubility and not undergo degradation. There is no degradation for it. So it will be accumulated in fishes. So when large fish eat small fish, the dose of pesticide will be transferred to the large fish, accumulated in the chain until reach human consuming these fishes. So the dose of pesticide will be large for this human. Okay, this is what we called organic persistent organic pollutants or POPs. Examples for gaseous and particulate pollutants like hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide, and CO2, as we mentioned before. Radioactive pollutants. You for sure hear about Chernobyl catastrophe. Millions of people suffer from different health hazards, range from skin irritation to cancer for several years from emission of radium and uranium. Biological pollutants, contamination of water resources by bacteria like cholera, or contamination of air by viruses like coronavirus and COVID-19, and so on. So, from what we previously mentioned, we can classify pollutants by its source into man-made or natural. Natural, like volcano and forest fires. Man-made from exhaust emissions from transportation vehicles, industrial and domestic wastes, and pesticide application. Routes of exposure. Pollutants can go to the bloodstream either inhaled or ingested or from skin contact. Inhalation of gases, mists, dust, ingestion of contaminated food, drink, water, or even hands by these chemicals, or contact with skin and eye, not necessarily to have injured skin. Intact skin, some chemicals can penetrate, like organic lead and pesticides. All these pollutants, when enter bloodstream, will target certain organs to damage. This is what we call target organ. Maybe liver, maybe kidney, CNS, and so on. And their health effects ranging from acute or chronic. Acute, where we receive large dose, large amount of these pollutants over short period and start within less than 24 hours. While chronic toxicity occurs when we exposed to small amount over a long period of time, so the result will be delayed effects and chronic toxicity. Damage of different organs and systems with appearance of carcinogenicity or chromosomal aberration, mutation, congenital anomalies, birth defects, what we call teratogenicity, and so on. Toxic inhalants, an important problem all over the world. For example, toxic gas like hydrogen sulfide result from decay and bacterial action on plant and animal material or from volcano eruption. Hydrogen sulfide is highly irritant to the respiratory passage, ranging from irritation to the nose and throat, may result in complete respiratory failure and death. Then heavy metals. Heavy metals is a big health problem. We will discuss now important examples of heavy metals like lead, arsenic, mercury, iron. Lead poisoning. We have two forms, as we mentioned before, acute toxicity and chronic toxicity. Acute toxicity of lead poisoning may range from certain neurological manifestations, starting from headache, irritability, abnormal movement, insomnia, dizziness, even hallucination, even encephalopathy. Also, there is colic that resemble acute abdomen, acute appendicitis. While chronic The clinical presentation in children is different from adult. In children, we may have intellectual retardation, decrease of IQ, or even autism. While in adult, there is weight loss, there is what we call lip pigmentation in the mouth, there is neuropathy, which mostly motor, muscle weakness, paralysis, renal impairment, blood dysfunction. Important figures I give you to illustrate the chronic lead poisoning like this. We have what we call the blue lead line, or deposition of hydrogen sulfide as a dark blue pigment as a junction between gum and teeth. This is a characteristic of chronic lead exposure. Also, there is neuropathy. We may see in severe cases what we call wrist drop paralysis. Okay, wrist drop and foot drop. Also, there is dysfunction of the enzymes responsible for degradation of microsomal RNA, and the net result will in blood film will appearance of what we call basophilic stippling. These examples you will discuss it in depth, inshallah, later on. Mercury. Mercury is a big problem for contamination of seawater and accumulate in fish. So consumption of fish contaminated with mercury may result in neurological and psychological changes like appearance of tremors, irritability, or what we call pathological shyness. In certain cases, there is like a madman, okay, and depression. Arsenic. Arsenic is one of the commonest abundant heavy metals in the earth crust, so commonly pollute soil and water. Arsenic chronic toxicity can affect liver, cardiovascular, CNS, while in acute poisoning, it gives picture like cholera from gastroenteritis and diarrhea. It's a proved human carcinogen for lung, bladder, kidney, skin. Manifestation in chronic arsenic toxicity is highly characteristic. You may see like this figure, what we call skin keratosis, hyperkeratosis, and hyperpigmentation at the palm and soles. Also, there is whitish discoloration of nail or what we call knees line. Skin ulceration and cancer also present. Other heavy metals like iron, iron poisoning. In acute cases, the target organ is liver. The net result will be acute liver cell failure and death. While in chronic poisoning, there is what we call bronze discoloration of the skin. Also, there is diabetes. So the net result will be what we call the bronze diabetes. Other manifestations like neurodegenerative disorders and cancer. Now we give small hint about some heavy metals you may see, like cadmium. Cadmium is a well-known heavy metal that target kidney. So chronic exposure may result in renal damage, birth defects, and cancer. Manganese is linked to Parkinson's disease appearance. Pesticides. Uncontrolled use of pesticides, pollution of water resources with pesticides is a big problem, affecting marine life, affecting human beings, animals, and so on. In human, chronic toxicity include headache, vomiting, muscle weakness, shortness of breath, and different health troubles. Now, we have to get an important term you may hear for the first time, what we call endocrinal disruptors. Certain chemicals like pesticides, okay, have a chemical structure resemble hormones, so it interacts with receptors to evoke abnormal response. This abnormal response will lead to disturbed normal homeostasis, affecting reproduction, growth and development, and behavioral changes. Important examples like pesticides, like bisphenol, like phthalate, and so on. Nitrates and nitrites. Nitrates may naturally occur or present from fermentation of crops, from animal wastes, or from industrial activities. Nitrates target hemoglobin. It will interact with the ferric iron in hemoglobin, and the net result will be methemoglobinemia. This type of hemoglobin can't carry oxygen, so then the result will be severe hypoxia. Also, in chronic exposure, it interacts with body proteins, amino acids, with the formation of nitroso compound, which is carcinogenic. Other pollutants like dioxin, which is linked with reproductive abnormalities, dyes and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons are linked with cancer and mutagenicity. Also, even presence, drinking water containing fluoride. Presence of high amount of fluoride in water, in drinking water, linked with fluorosis of bone, muscles, ligaments. This picture, ossification or radioobesity of muscles. This is from deposition of fluoride or fluorosis of teeth. Okay. Radioactive pollution, okay, may result in different forms of cancer. For example, radium is linked with bone and lung cancer. Uranium is linked with bone and kidney cancer. This is our end. We have an overview on different pollutants, health hazards of these different pollutants, and important definitions as mentioned on the first part of our lecture. What is the meaning of environmental toxicology, ecotoxicology, environmental health toxicology, and what is the difference between quantitative and qualitative pollutants? Now, you have to take these questions. We have a small quiz of 5 questions. Please read it. Upload your answer in Microsoft Teams group. I correct it, giving you feedback to test your knowledge and make sure you can keep in your mind important definitions and facts about environmental toxicology. Lastly, wishing you good luck. Thank you for your attention and see you inshallah next lecture. Salam alaikum.